Why I felt the need to wear this much makeup for a video where I will be talking about, among other things, Swedish death cleaning is anyone's guess. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Leigh Monet, and as my opening graphic stated, these are my adventures in middle aging. And as my opening little segment said, yes, I will be talking just very briefly about Swedish death cleaning. But the reason I'm making this video is not necessarily Swedish death cleaning, it is decluttering. And the death cleaning is going to come into that. But let me just tell you what my thoughts are. I am going to be doing a decluttering series coming up. I personally really enjoy watching declutters. I find them very cathartic. I find them very fascinating to watch. I love to watch people go through their collection, and I like hearing their thought processes on why they are getting rid of certain things and keeping certain things, and there's just something very satisfying about watching the whole process. I really enjoy it, and it's also really enjoyable to go through it yourself when you know that you have too much stuff. And that is where I am. I feel like I just have too much stuff. And because I feel like I have too much stuff, I want to declutter. And I've actually gone through and done some declutters in previous years. I actually went through a few years ago and got together a box, maybe about that big or so, and filled it up with eyeshadow palettes and blushes and various other things, and gave it to a friend. And then sometime after that went through again and got another smaller box together, and that is going to be donated. But the thing that really sort of made it clear that I needed to go through my collection was something that I started in December of 2018. And I'm filming this in February of 2020, so this was a little while ago. But as my opening graphic states, I'm in middle age. And I decided on December 1st of 2018 that I was going to start a project with all of my lipsticks, because I had so many lip products, lipsticks, lip glosses, things like that. I was going to do a little project, and I was going to wear a different one every day because I wanted to test them all out, see if they still worked, see if they were maybe had gone bad or whatever, and wanted to go through the whole collection. So I did that project, and I found out, and this should not have been a surprise at all, but because I am now in middle age, things of course are changing. My skin is changing, my face is changing, lots of things are changing. Some of you may have already noticed with yourselves that certain lip products especially really creamy ones or glossy ones, don't work because of this nasty little thing called lip lines. The little lines that you get around the outer perimeter of your lips, the edge of your lips. And there are products that just will not stay within the lines of your lips because they're spreading out because of those lines, and it is not a pretty look. And there were several products that didn't even make it. I don't even think they made it an hour before I realized they needed to go away. And then there were other products that were they were old, they just didn't work anymore, the color just wasn't right, whatever. You know, you change as you get older. I've noticed that I am changing a lot. My tastes are changing, even as I'm changing. There are certain products that just don't work as well on me because I'm getting older, but also my tastes are changing. And so as I'm going into this new sort of era of my life, I've realized that there's just a lot of stuff that I have that isn't working. And I enjoy my makeup, but to give you a little background as to how I got to this point, in around 2011, 2012, I fell down the rabbit hole of YouTube, and especially beauty YouTube. And I started watching a lot of people who were doing hauls, who were talking about the products they were buying at Sephora and Ulta and the drugstore and online. And it really inspired me to buy stuff because I was going through a difficult time in my life where I was trying to fill a hole. And I was trying to fill it with stuff, and that doesn't work, but I was doing a valiant effort to try and fill that hole with stuff. And so I bought, and I watched videos, and I bought more, and I was reading blogs, and I bought even more. And I kept having to put things into bigger and bigger storage containers, and then moved into bigger storage containers and even bigger. It was a whole process, and it just, at a certain point, after however many years of doing that, it became overwhelming, and I realized that it was ridiculous. And what I was doing wasn't filling up the hole, it was just creating more stress and more overwhelm for me. thus the two previous sort of mini declutters that I went through, and then the lipstick project. And now I have this channel, and I'm talking about middle aging, and I'm talking about things like skincare, and I'm trying to talk about positive things. But sometimes when we get into this point in our lives, we just realize we're saddled with things that aren't working anymore, things that stress us out, things that overwhelm us, things that just aren't, as Marie Kondo would say, sparking joy. They're not helping. They're negative. They are not useful. They're not practical. They're not necessary in our lives anymore. And so that's where I am. And so now that I have this channel, I know that if I'm saying that I'm going to be putting this onto film and then putting it into the interwebs onto my channel, that it will, one, motivate me to actually do it and not just say I'm going to do it, but it will also hopefully encourage me to be even more ruthless than I would otherwise be, because I know that I just have too much stuff. I have more stuff. I have more eyeshadows and lip products than I could ever use. One of the things I learned from my little lip product culling, as you might call it, was that lip products, it takes a long time to use up a lipstick. It takes a long time to use up one lip product. They don't use up really quickly. You get a lot of use out of them, which can be great, but it also means if you have a lot of them, you're probably not going to use all of them up. And I mentioned that I'm in middle age. I have a much better sense of my own mortality now than I did in my 20s, which is just kind of how it goes. When you're in your 20s, even if you intellectually understand that life doesn't last forever, you have this sort of sense of immortality, like your death really isn't that close. And of course, death can be close for anybody, it doesn't matter how old or young you are. But as a middle-aged person, I can tell you that I feel much closer to death than I did in my 20s. I know that I'm not going to be alive forever. And I knew that intellectually, but now it's been cemented in my mind that, you know what? This is not forever. And thus, Swedish death cleaning. And I remember hearing about this some time ago, and as I was thinking about this whole declutter thing, I thought, you know what? I wonder if Swedish death cleaning plays into this. So I looked up some information, and I'll leave a couple, or at least one link down below to some basic information about what it is. But basically, well, for one thing, it's from Sweden. And it's also, as you would guess from the name, it is somewhat about death. It's somewhat related to death. And the whole idea with Swedish death cleaning is that you go through your possessions and essentially declutter, because you don't want the people who are going to be cleaning up after your death to have to go through all of it on their own. You're doing it sort of in anticipation of someday you're going to die. And there's a whole book about it, and I am planning on reading that because it sounds fascinating. But this whole idea of decluttering your life before you die, so that the people who are left after you, whether that's family or friends or whoever is brought in to take care of your stuff, they're not left with all of this stuff to go through. And I thought, you know, that's the perfect thing to do with my makeup, is to go through it, because I don't want somebody else to have to just, and of course it's probably just going to end up getting thrown away anyways, but why don't I go through and do it myself? Because one, I have too much stuff. I have more stuff than I can use. My eyeshadows especially. I actually went through last year at one point and depotted a bunch of my eyeshadow palettes. So basically with depotting, you're taking the individual pans of eyeshadow out of the palette and you're putting it into a storage palette that takes up much less room than the original palette. A lot of eyeshadow palettes are very pretty, but they take up a lot of extra space. So I went through and I got rid of a whole bunch of eyeshadow palettes. I actually have a box of the empty eyeshadow palettes, and I will show you that in my eyeshadow declutter video. But basically, I got rid of a whole bunch of palettes and sort of compressed that collection down. But doing that, I was looking at them thinking, wow, I have a lot of brown eyeshadow. I have a lot of eyeshadows that look very similar. So as I was thinking about doing a declutter, I thought, that's something that really needs to happen, because I can't use all of that stuff. I probably have a lot of repeats of things. I probably have a lot of eyeshadows that are very similar, and so I don't need them all. I'm not going to be able to go through all that I have before I die. So let's just go ahead and get rid of it now. And let's do it on camera so that I'm motivated to do it, and so that maybe I can I don't know, encourage other people. If you are out there and you're struggling with this, I know I like to watch other people doing declutters. There are two people in particular that I watch who do them who have done them on their channels. One of them is Hailey Evans, who is a Canadian-based makeup artist, and she puts out videos here on YouTube. She just went through a no-buy year last year and documented that, and she has also done quite a few declutters. She is moving towards a minimalist lifestyle and wanting to have less stuff. And so she's done declutters, and I find that very fascinating, cathartic, satisfying. And then somebody else who has a very different aesthetic to Hailey is Jessica Braun, who also has a channel here on YouTube. She's somebody who is more of like one of those OG beauty tubers who's been around for quite a while, and she gets a lot of PR because she is an influencer. And so she goes through and does declutters because she has so much stuff. And again, satisfying, cathartic, very interesting. I find it. I just love watching like a drawer of stuff that's all just, in total chaos go down to being much neater and cleaner and, fewer products. I love watching that. They both do that, and I will put links to each of their channels down below. They both have playlists about declutter, so I find that very encouraging. It motivates me. It makes me start to think very critically about what I have, and that's what I want to do. I want to be more critical moving forward about what I keep in my collection. The fact that somebody like me even has a collection is somewhat ridiculous, but there you go. Be more critical about what I have. Keep the things that I'm actually going to use, and if I'm not going to use it, either because I have too many of the same type of thing, or it just isn't useful to me anymore, it doesn't work with, my hair has now gone gray, I've let it go gray, so, and my skin is changing. Your skin color actually changes somewhat as you age, and the way it looks changes. So things that worked back in my 20s and 30s, and even my early 40s just aren't going to work now. Not that I have anything from when I was in my 20s, I probably don't, but definitely, even just from a few years ago, even when I was going through that initial frenzy of makeup buying, a lot of that stuff just isn't going to work for me anymore. And so I need to bless and release. As a friend of mine says, bless and release. I need to release some of the things from my collection. They may go to other people. Unfortunately, a lot of it is just probably going to have to get thrown away because it can't be passed along. That's another thing that I'm thinking about, is my waste stream and how much of this stuff is just going to waste. And I don't want that to happen anymore. I don't want to be contributing as much to that waste stream. So this initial process of getting things out of my life, I'm hoping that's going to encourage me to be much more critical moving forward as I make choices in the future on purchasing things, because I am not planning on doing like a full-out no-buy or anything like that. I'm not necessarily even looking to maybe become a minimalist, but just be more critical and more thoughtful about what I'm bringing into my life so that I don't have to go through 4 declutters over the years. I can use what I have and it will be useful and it will add something to my life. So the way I'm seeing it is there are 4 main categories that I need to declutter: lip products, eyeshadows, eyeliners, cream eyeshadows, and cream eyeshadow sticks. I think those will kind of go in their own little category. And then finally, blushes and highlighters. So it's the color products really that are the issue for me. I have only, I think it's 3 foundations. I use them all. Actually, one of them is pretty much out, almost out. I can still scrape a little bit out, but I use all of those, so I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with like face powder. I have like maybe 1 or 2 because I don't use very much. So those types of things, the foundation products, I don't have an issue with. It's the color products, and I think that's true of a lot of us who have issues with makeup buying. It's the color products. It's the blushes, the eyeshadows, the lipsticks. Those are so easy to buy, and that's what we end up with a lot of. But those are the main categories that I am looking to cull the herd and reduce what I have so that my collection is usable and it's practical and it isn't going to be overwhelming to me anymore. I hope that sounds interesting to you. Like I said, even if this is just for me, even if this is just me talking to myself, putting out a video that only I will watch, that is fine, because I think it will be motivating to me at the very least. But I would be very interested, if you're watching this and you're interested in this, do you have issues with bringing things into your life that you don't need, either bringing quantities in that you don't need, or do you have issues with letting things go from your life? Do you have a tendency to hoard things, or do you need to declutter things in your life? And if so, what are those things? Let me know down below, because I'm very interested to hear that. Or conversely, if you don't have an issue with that, why do you not have an issue with that? Were you raised in a way that causes you to not do that. Maybe you were raised by hoarding parents and so you wanted to go the opposite direction. Whichever it is, I'd be very interested to hear that and hear about your experiences with that. So let's talk about that down below and see where we each are, because I know that I'm not the only person who has an issue with stuff, but I also know that there are a lot of people out there who either are natural minimalist or are moving that way just because we're so overwhelmed by our capitalist, consumerist society. So please join me again. If you are not already subscribed, I would love it if you would join us. There will be a subscribe button here and also down below if you're interested in doing that. I would love to have you here and participating in this. I talk a lot about middle-aging things and issues. Talk a lot about skincare and taking care of ourselves, whether that be our physical selves or our spiritual and our souls and all that wonderful stuff as middle-aged people, just because life changes a lot as you're moving into middle age. And so if that sounds interesting, please join us. I will leave a few other video options over here, maybe some playlists, and I hope to see you back here at the next video. Thanks so much and take care of yourself.